Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the journey within day 52. I'm your host, Prashant Sopori, joining you live from Detroit, Michigan. I've been a Sahaja Yoga practitioner of past 28 years, and just to say, it has been a transformational journey all along. And every year that I have spent in Sahaja Yoga meditation, it has been a growth year for me. So I'm looking forward to this session. We have a packed agenda today, and I'm sure we'll all have a lot of fun today going through it. Before I go through the agenda, just a quick reminder, if anyone is new or has missed any of the previous classes, the recordings are available, and there is one-on-one help available after the class through the breakout sessions. So today, we'll be going over the Adi Guru's wisdom within us. So we'll talk about the void, we'll talk about the Guru principle, we'll talk about the 10 great primordial masters, or as we call them, the Adi Gurus. That'll be followed by a foot soak and a guided meditation session, and then we'll be listening to a talk of Shri Mataji on the same very topic. After that, we'll be having a live music by Sia. Alongside, we'll have the quotes from the various Adi Gurus. And then lastly, to conclude it, we'll have the presenters sharing. So before we jump into the agenda, I would like to take a moment to have the presenters introduce themselves today. So first off, we have Sia. Please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Good evening. Very excited about this session. We've been preparing the last couple of days together with Prashant and with Linda and others, and it was so much fun. And we learned so much, right? So many enlightened moments. I just wanted to let you know that it ended up being a purely, mostly Indian music program, which is not something I normally do because I'm not really super duper on in Indian music. But I have been to 2 times in India in an academy called the Nirmala Arts Academy that Shri Mataji actually founded. And that first time was 95 and then 2000. And I must say, since then, I haven't performed this. So please forgive any mistakes that I do with the shlokas, with the mantras. There will be plenty. Just meditate and enjoy. But just very briefly, it was always in Shri Mataji's interest with the arts to learn Indian music, because Indian music is extremely powerful, extremely deep, and connects to our energy system. So this academy was founded by her brother, Baba Mama. And a couple of us went there and learned all sorts of instruments. I learned the violin, others learned sitar, flute, harmonium, and singing. So at the moment it's not happening, but I hear they might start it again. But just to let you know, the background of a couple of us trying to learn a little bit of Indian music. So there you go.
Well, thank you, Sia. Looking forward to it. Next up is Andre. Please go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. It's great to be part of this, and obviously being part of an evening about our master principle is always a privilege, because in the end that's one of those things we all have to kind of acquire, allow to blossom in order to really keep moving forward. And I'm very happy to be here this evening.
Excellent. Thank you, Andre, for that. Thank you, Sia. So let's then dive right into it. So the first up we have, we'll be talking about the Adi Guru wisdom within us. Now, it's a very, very profound topic. As primordial masters, as you heard Sia and then Andre, they talked about the role the Adi Gurus and the primordial masters have played in our overall evolution. But before we go and talk about Adi Gurus in detail, I think it is imperative to understand the principle of void. It's important to understand the construct of void as to why it is such a vital area in our evolution. So since the beginning of the time, I mean, human beings in general, and I would say seekers in particular, have always, dealt with this question of, who they really are. What is their true purpose? Why are they on this earth? What is going to be the ultimate culmination of their entire existence? There's this constant battle with ignorance and illusion. So the center, or I would say the area within our subtle system that kind of deals with this constant conflict between the reality and the illusion is referred to as the void. So void is known as the ocean of illusion, or in Sanskrit language, as we refer to it as the Bhavasagara, meaning the ocean of illusion. This is the area where the most seekers, they get lost. So let's understand as to why is that the case. So for that, let's take a look at the construct of the void. So if you can please bring up the chakra chart. So if we look at this area surrounding the Nabhi, in this green area, that is what we refer to as the void, the big circle that is around the Nabhi. Now, as such, the void is not really connected to any of the energy centers, but the two primary centers that play an important role in the overall health and the functioning of the void are the Nabhi and Swadhisthana. So Nabhi, as we recognize, it is an area which deals with the inner satisfaction. And off the Nabhi, like a satellite cord, Swadhisthana is hanging. And Swadhisthana is revolving around Nabhi, creating this periphery of the void. So in essence, the health of the Nabhi dictates the health of Swadhisthana, and the health of your Swadhisthana dictates the overall health and progression of your void. So what happens prior to the realization is that most seekers, as we said, they're dealing with this sense of incompleteness. And that sense of incompleteness is actually born because there is this innate, you can say, force trying to unite with the spirit. But because of the human involvements on the outside, there is this constant tension. And this sense of incompleteness, feeds into our Swadhisthana, which is really engulfed with all of the desires, all of the mundane basal desires that typically human beings, encounter with. So when the Nabhi is not satisfied, all these mundane desires are fueled. And as we know, Swadhisthana also controls and powers our brain. That whole confusion arises and really, gives us this reaction on the outside. So the general reaction of a seeker is to do something on the outside to gain that satisfaction within. But the answer, as we all have now realized, is the answer is within us. So what happens is that once the Kundalini is awakened and it passes the Nabhi, it satisfies. And all these false desires, which are completely, enveloping your Swadhisthana, they all start falling away. And only one pure desire remains, which is a desire to achieve one's ascent, desire to realize the spirithood. That's the only one desire which stays. And that becomes instrumental in us passing the void. And that is what really makes the work the primordial masters did so profound. Whenever the human society or generations were going through some kind of an era of social disorder or decadence or political disorder, these primordial masters or the Adi Gurus, they arrived on this earth and established principles and guide rails for people to follow so that they can, stay close to dharma. What is dharma? Dharma is this path of righteousness, which allows you to create that is enlightened, sustain what is good, and fade away what is not required for your ascent. That is dharma. And that is the principle of the dharmic life. It is the principle of righteousness, principle of having a virtuous life. So these great masters, they actually ushered in these eras of greatness at various points in time. If we go to the next slide, please. So these are the great masters. As you can see, we have divided them on the left void and the right void. They arrive at various points in time to really establish this era of, virtuousness era of spirituality, and essentially ensuring the people and the citizens of those times were able to stay as close to the spirit as possible. While they did not give the awakening of the Kundalini, they did not give the realization, but they established a principle lifestyle. And the idea of their birth was that one after the other, they were actually building on the principles of the previous one. Their births were supposed to be accretive in nature. That way, the entire humanity gets a role model, gets a framework by which they can stay as close to spirit as possible. Now, it of course is an irony that, after their departure from this earth, all their teachings and their principles were codified in different books and religions, which became a reason for divide among the human beings. However, their idea, because they all belong to this singular principle of Shri Adi Guru Dattatreya, who is the primordial master, and the idea was to really establish those principles of creation, sustenance, and destruction so that people can follow a very dharmic life, a very virtuous life. So what happens is that after the Kundalini is awakened and it passes through your Navi, your entire thought process, or you can say your awareness is enlightened, your attention is enlightened, and you're able to transcend the Bhavsagra and get into your heart. And that's where the encounter with the spirit happens. And that's where we truly become the spirit. And as we know, spirit is the master. And that's how we become the master of our own self, which is the primary quality of void, that we have to become the master of our own self. So with that said, let's take a quick, view of each of these great masters who came at different points in time. We'll go through the first 5 of the left void first, and then from there we'll transition into the right void. The number 1 was Raja Janaka. 8000 BC, he came, his advent took place in Mithila, India. He was father of Sri Sita, who's also known as Janaki. And as many of us might recognize, she was wife of Lord Rama, who was also an incarnation of Sri Vishnu. One key thing about Raja Janaka is that he was referred to as Vaidehi. And Vaidehi means, somebody who is completely detached from their body. There's a story about him that he stayed in meditation by the riverside while his entire house burned down. Moving on to the next one, Abraham. 2000 BC, in Mesopotamia and Palestine. He is the prophet and the first patriarch of the Jewish nation, forefather of the 12 tribes of Israel. He's also acknowledged as one of the ancestors of Prophet Muhammad. He seriously opposed idolatry during his lifetime and associated a lot to the eternal qualities of faith, sacrifice, commitment, and patience. Next one, please. Moses, 1250 BC, Egypt and Palestine, the founder of Jewish law, recognized as a great prophet in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. He was a religious leader of Hebrew origin. He was raised as an Egyptian prince, but he was appalled by the treatment of the Hebrew slaves, and hence he ran and encountered the burning bush where God instructed him to lead the Hebrews out of slavery. And we, of course, know him for the famous 10 commandments given to him at Mount Sinai. Zarathustra, a great Persian poet and prophet who viewed the universe as a constant cosmic struggle between truth and falsehood. He gave the path of sustaining truth by active participation in life through the exercising of good thoughts, words, and deeds. Next up is Confucius. He's the last on the left void, great Chinese philosopher who deeply influenced the life on the eastern side, for China, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam, highly regarded in those areas. And he emphasized morality, not just on the personal level, but also as part of the governance. He really talked a lot about the value of social relationships, justice, and sincerity. The next five that we'll be taking a look at are on the right side. The first up is Lao Tse, another 6th century Chinese philosopher who was the founder of Taoism. Tao, the way. Tao is the universal truth that transcends the physical universe. Tao is an experience, that he talked about is one with the nature and one with one's own inner self. Next up is Socrates, another great philosopher and reformer who's also considered to be the father of logic and Western philosophy. He came in the period of 469 to 399 BC in Athens, Greece. He was originally a sculptor, but he gave up his skill completely to devote himself completely to the moral and intellectual reforms of his citizens. He believed that the absolute truth, often referred to as the guidance from the divine voice within. Next is Prophet Muhammad, 570 to 632 AD in Mecca, Arabia, founder of Islam, meaning the surrendering to the will of God. At the age of 40, he began to receive revelations from Angel Gabriel, or also known as Jibrail. He spent 3 years in prayer and spiritual practice. And all the revelations that he received from the Mount of Ashra, they were compiled later on after his death in the Holy Book of Quran. Next we have is Guru Nanak, 1469 to 1539 AD, Punjab, India, founder of Sikhism, born in a Hindu family near Lahore. He spoke of the oneness of God, salvation by faith and good works, and the equality and brotherhood of man. He also did a lot of work for the equality of women and the overall universal religion. He emphatically advocated devotion through excellent code of conduct. And lastly, the most recent primordial master is Sai Baba of Shirdi. He's Indian guru and Sufi who in his life and teachings tried to embrace and reconcile Hinduism and Islam, celebrating festivals and rituals from both. He's also referred to as Sainath. He lived in Maharashtra and he taught his entire life about love, forgiveness, helping others with charity, contentment, and devotion to the Guru. He's also the one who prophesied Shri Mataji's advent. As you can see, 1918 is when Sai Baba of Shirdi departed this mortal world, and Shri Mataji was born in the year 1923. So, coming back, bringing the whole thing back to its conclusion, all these 10 primordial masters, they are essentially the embodiment of the same principle of Sri Adiguru Dattatreya, who again emphasized he was a combination of the powers of Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh, which basically is the power of creation, sustaining, and destruction. Create what is enlightened, sustain what is true, and destroy what is false. That is essentially the principle of your void. Now, I know that was a lot, but I think as everything else, the real truth lies in experiencing it. So what we'll be doing next over here is we'll be starting with the foot soaking session. So I'm assuming that everyone has their foot soaking tubs ready to go. So we will first start off by raising our Kundalini and putting ourselves in a bandhan. So we'll go really slow with complete attention towards ourselves. We'll first tie our Ida Nadi, take it up. That's our Ida channel. We'll again go nice and slow. This time we'll tie 2 knots for our Ida and Pingla, the left and the right. And now we'll do 3 knots for all 3 channels, Ida, Pingla, and the central one, the Sushumna. Now that we have raised our Kundalini, put ourselves in Bandhan, we can now take the Bandhan. 7 cycles. Six and 7. Now that we are all comfortably in this state, let's submerge our feet in the water. We will first relax ourselves completely. With eyes closed, our attention on top of our Sahasrara, on our 7th energy center, which is the top of our head, will completely relax ourselves. And just pray to Mother Kundalini, Mother Kundalini, please allow me to experience thoughtlessness and get me in the state of meditation. A very humble prayer with complete dedication. Now we will face our right hand towards Mother Earth, left hand on our lap to balance our left side. We'll pray to Mother Kundalini again. Mother Kundalini, please awaken your powers of comfort on my left side. Please remove all the negative conditionings and imbalances from my left side. Allow me to experience your force on my left side. Please bless my left side. Let's not put any effort, just simple prayer. And the power of Kundalini acts. Now we'll balance our right side, place our right hand on our lap, left hand towards the sky with the palm facing backwards. And again, a simple prayer. Mother Kundalini, please establish your counseling power on my right side, on my Pingla Nadi. And please take away all the heat from my Pingla Nadi, from my right side. Let all the imbalances from my right side be absorbed by the sky element. Mother Kundalini, I surrender myself to you completely. Please act on my Pingla Nadi. Allow me to experience you on my Pingla Nadi. Now we'll bring our left hand back in our lap, maintaining our attention on the very top of our head. We'll bring our right hand on our left void. So right hand on the left part of our stomach or upper abdomen area. And here we'll make a simple affirmation. Mother Kundalini, by your grace, I am the master of my own self. Let's take this affirmation with complete humility and confidence. Because only the mother is the one who can make the child a master. So with complete humility, we'll ask Mother Kundalini that all the powers of the primordial master on the left side be awakened within me. That all their principles be awakened within me. That by that grace, I become the master of my own self. Please give me the complete blessing of all the primordial masters. Now we'll bring our right hand on our lap and left hand on our right void. On the right side of the void, we'll completely surrender to Mother Kundalini. Say, Mother, you verily are the master within me. Let the power of the primordial masters on the right side be completely awakened within me. With complete humility and surrender. Mother, allow me to transcend the void. Allow me to become the spirit. We'll bring both our hands in our lap and just witness our attention on the top of our head. And just see how light it has become as compared to when we started. Just allow the power to act. Let the attention transcend from your void into your heart. Into your Vishuddhi. We'll bring the right hand on our forehead for a bit and just pray, Mother, please take away all my ego and conditionings. Please take away the sense of me being the doer from within me. Please make me completely thoughtless. Please make me completely thoughtless. Let's just put our right hand on the very top of our head, gently. And here we'll just make a simple prayer. Mother, please take away all my ignorance, my illusions. Allow me to experience the dharma of my spirit within me. Allow me to fully experience my realization. Allow me to experience the truth. Gently raise your hand above your head and see how you feel. Bring your right hand down in your lap and just experience a moment of thoughtlessness with your attention on top of your head. At this point, we can open our eyes. We'll take a moment to rinse our feet. And just put the foot soaking tub aside. All right. So now we'll just maintain this state of meditation, and we'll be listening to a talk of Shri Mataji about the Adi Gurus. Let's just internalize the message in this state that we just established.
Now all the gurus, okay, say we can start from Socrates, then Abraham, Moses. This is the Guru Tattva, is the principle of master, primordial masters. The principle is born again and again. In India we can say the Adinath, we had one Adinath, the Guru long time back. Then we had Dattatreya, we had Janaka, Nanaka, Sainath. We had in the Middle East Muhammad Sahib, Lao Tse in China, Confucius. All these great principles of gurus who were born, they had one job to do, is to establish your dharma. Their job was not to give you realization. You must understand, everyone has one's own job. See, mine is a Horrible job, because I have to do everybody's jobs. But their job was just to establish your dharma. They came at that time in those places where it was needed the most. So these 10 principles, as I told you, they established. They are created in the void. As you see here, the void part, this part is made out of the water element. So whatever miracles they did had something to do with water, like they could create water anywhere they wanted to. They would not cure people. All of them have created water in the desert or in the places where, like in Nanaka has created a Panja Sahab, they call it. Everywhere they have been able to create water. Whatever they touched, they could create water out of it. Water is the life force which sustains us. Without water, we cannot live. So it's the sustainers. But they actually are symbolized in an ocean. In the ocean, because they give us the salt of life, which gives us the sustenance. If you see the salt, if we do not have salt in our body, we'll have no sustenance. Christ has said, you are the salt. Who are these you? Are the people whom I was facing yesterday and today. You are the gurus of today. But see with how many powers you have come. Just think of it. This guru did not have to give realization. You can raise the kundalini, you can give realization, you can cure people. Today Jamil asked me that, mother, did they have the powers to cure? I said, powers they might have, but they never used that power because they were not supposed to do. They were just to sustain and imbibe these great principles. They did cure, especially the last guru was Sainath. She did cure people. But Jamil himself has cured a lady who was dying, absolutely. Doctors had given up hopes and he cured. Now she's out and she's gone to India. Just think of it, that you have all the powers of these gurus, though in dharma you are still failing. You are not absolute. You have to get it corrected. Your dharmas are to be corrected. Now what is dharma within us? Is our attention. As our attention is, you can make out the dharma of a person. Religion doesn't convey that word. Dharma means the one which sustains. Dharayati sadharma, the one which sustains. Your dharma is the way your attention is. To have a complete balanced attention is just like the aeroplane, completely balanced and fully developed. If you have an imbalance in your dharma, the first and foremost thing is fanaticism. If you are a fanatic, then you are the greatest adharmi ever born. Dharma is balancing, first and foremost, is to know that all the dharma belong to one lotus, Nabi. Nabi has got 10 petals. And these 10 petals are the 10 sustenance within us. If you see that Nabi has got 10 petals. Nabi center, the solar plexus, which manifests solar plexus. And if these 10 sustenance are correct, your attention will be so balanced. Unless and until a flower is balanced, it is not going to blossom out into a fruit. First is the balance. All fanaticism of any kind, of condemning any religion or any incarnation, is against dharma. That gives you an imbalance. That means you have not understood the essence of dharma. Because you are blind. to say that there's something wrong with what Christ has preached is as wrong as saying that there's something wrong what Moses has preached or Dattatreya has preached or Nanaka has preached. Actually, Muhammad Sahib thought that he has said whatever was necessary, so there is no need for him to come back. But when he saw these horrible fanatics, even today they are, he thought, but let me take again the birth. What to do now with these madcaps? The thing that I preached, they are just going against it. Because I said I will not come, so they are becoming such fanatics. He had to take his birth because you see, human beings are such foolish things that these incarnations don't know what to do. You don't know how they will behave. So he took his birth again as Nanak on this earth. And his own daughter, Adishakti, was born as his sister. What Nanaka was preaching throughout and throughout was this, that Hindu and Muslims are the same in the eyes of God, and that you all combine together and become one. If there is anything that he has taught or Kabira has taught is this and this and this. But look at the Sikhs, the way they fight the Muslims, and look at the way the Muslims fight the Sikhs. We have created two nations out of it. Imagine what he preached is just the opposite people are doing about it. How do you explain? I don't understand. I mean, when somebody says this is light, how do you make it darkness? I can't understand. This is the speciality of human being, to create darkness out of light. Now this dharma that they preached is preached by all of them. And they have been particularly against all that goes against awareness, because if your attention is not alright, your awareness will not be alright. And so they were very anxious, all throughout all of them, that they preach that don't take anything that will reduce your awareness. That's why they were against alcoholism, they were against drugs and things like that.
So let's give it a minute to let Shri Mataji's words resonate. So we have all reached our own guru state, and I rely on all your guru powers for this minute, because I tried the last 30 minutes to reconnect my computer. So if you be so kind, and all of you give it a bandhan. Now we call that a hand bandhan. I think you learned that. Just give it a bandhan that the rest of this session runs smoothly. And if I get disconnected, I get disconnected. Then I say good night. So let's hope this all runs smoothly now. Whatever should be, will be. Thank you.
Raja Janaka, when you live in the realm of divine power, the Brahma that looks after you, Abraham. In the time of Abraham, that was just a system when the family was building up and relationships were building up. And he tried to work it on that level. By Shri Mataji Nirmala Devi. Moses, you shall therefore keep all the commandments which I command you this day, that you may be strong. Zarathustra. Therefore, may we be those who shall heal this world. Confucius. I hear and I forget. I see and remember. I do and understand. He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior. Lao Tse, mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. Socrates, be as you wish to seem. Know thyself. Prophet Muhammad, 1 hour's meditation on the work of the Creator is better than 70 years of prayer.
Shri Adi Guru Tattatreya Shri Adi Guru Shri Adi Guru Shri Adi Guru Tattatreya Shri Adi
Guru Nanaka. See the brotherhood of all mankind as the highest order of yogis. Conquer your own mind and conquer the world. He who has no faith in himself can never have faith in God. Sai Baba of Shirdi. See the divine in the human being.
Now let us keep our attention on top of our head. We can keep in the silence. Stay in this moment of silence. I have one more song for you after this moment to celebrate all these 10 Adigurus. But for now, let us imbibe all these beautiful, beautiful quotes that we just heard. And just be in silence for a minute. Let's raise our Kundalini with our right hand a few times. See what we feel. And then with the other hand, before I sing, let's take a bandhan all together. Let's raise our Kundalini. bandhan. So when I came to Sahaja Yoga and I heard about all these Adigurus, I was so excited because there was no either or, no choosing. They're all part of our system. They're all alive in us. And out came a version of the Guru mantra that is probably very unusual. But I really hope you enjoy this. This has been created a couple of years back. And Abhishek, you know Abhishek, he sang solo when we did it as a gospel choir version. So I'm going to try to do my best singing this on my own. I mean, I wish you would all sing along one day. And this is the Guru mantra with all the names of the 10 Adigurus at the end of our session, celebrating with the wrong sound. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Shri Mataji Nirmala, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Shri Mataji Nirmala, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Jai Shri Abraham, Jai Shri Moses, Jai Shri Zarathustra, Jai Shri Confucius, Jai Shri Lao Tse, Jai Shri Socrates, Jai Shri Mohammed, Jai Shri Sai Baba, Jai Shri Guru Nanak, oh Jai Shri Raja Janaka. Glory to the masters who showed us the path to know ourselves. Guru Brahma, over to Prashant to give us all the last minute info of the session. Thanks so much for being part of the session. See you shortly.
Well, thank you so much, Sia. This was fantastic. It was so vibrationally, elevating. This was beautiful. Thank you so much. All right, so on to just to make some announcements before we move on to our presenter sharing session. We want to pass our special thanks to Giselle Mora. She's a Sahaja Yogi painter, and a lot of the depictions that you saw during all those great slides, where we talked about the quotes of various primordial masters and a bit about their life, right? Some of those depictions were directly Giselle Mora's work, and she was hugely contributing to this overall session here. So thank you so much. If you want to learn more about the 10 primordial masters, you can refer to this book by Chris Marlowe. And there's a link right here that you can go and, obtain your copy. There is something on my screen over here. Okay, all right. So from program resources, so you can request a mentor. There is all the information provided in the chat window here. You can join the community in WhatsApp group, and then you have all the live YouTube sessions available. With all the sessions are recorded, and there are handouts available on the site here. All right, so our next program will be on Sunday, May 14th, and that'll be focused on expressing our gratitude to our mother. So please join us on Sunday, same time, same link. All right, so at this time, our regular programming is over. We, of course, will be going through the presenter sharing, but, if you have any questions or you want to review any part of it, you can move on to the breakout room for help. I believe you just have to type into the chat window, breakout room help, and there will be a Sahaja Yoga teacher assigned to you who can guide you along the way. And also, so on to our next section over here, which is the presenters sharing their experiences. So we have a few questions that we'll be asking our presenters. So if the presenters can, share their video and unmute themselves. All right, so Andre and Sia, welcome. I think, Sia, you might still be on mute, and Andre.
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Now we can hear
Good.
you.
Yeah, I was switching system. All right.
That was beautiful, Sia. Yeah. So.
Well, that was the running up to it was stressful because for half an hour nothing worked. Nothing. It was like, okay, this is not going to happen tonight.
It all works out.
Oh yeah, I know. If it's meant to, it's not a given.
Excellent. Yeah, I know we're running slightly, I would say, behind schedule today. So.
Oh, really? Do we get some brownie points from Linda?
Right? Yeah.
Wow, we can add them to the next session.
All right, so without further ado, so the first question over here is that how was learning about the 10 Adi Gurus affected your own understanding and the practice of Sahaja Yoga? And part B of there is, were there any religious conditionings or practices from early in your life that you had to work through? So whoever can go first. Andre, if you want to start first.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, this was always my favorite lecture was reading from the 10 Adi Gurus. Of course, I had no idea of the few that I had some material from, obviously, that they were in the Adi Gurus. And in the old days, there were all sorts of books circulating about masters and this and that. And it really felt like some were different than the others. But over the years and since becoming a Sahaja Yogi, and it's been a little water under the bridge, but this has been one of the important supports for the mind, right? And especially to sort of not involve the mind, to go back to this, as well as, obviously listening to Shri Mataji, but sometimes it's practical to also have a little bit of a lecture, and all of them. One of the things that I found the most obvious and cool is that when you read, they all sound exactly the same. The essence really resonates in the exact same, and they're going around through all the hours of the clock, of dharma, basically, and it really all seems like it's coming from the same source. And when you really feel that, it just reassures you that there is order in this beautiful universe, and that it's a divine order and it's going to work out, just like Sia's story. Everything needed to be rebooted, so it's perfect when time comes.
I mean,
that's exactly what happened. So
so I will just add to that, Andre, to the franticness that Sia experienced during the program, honestly speaking, and Linda Auntie knows that, Sia knows that, I was experiencing that before the program, because I've had almost, I would say, 4 meetings since morning, work and, Sahaj related. And each time, for one or the other reason, internet was breaking out. There was one call this morning where all of a sudden, in the middle of me speaking something, the whole thing just went down. And I was like, oh my God, I hope this does not happen this evening. So yeah, I can totally relate to that. Yeah, but as you said, at the end, all works out. And that's where the whole surrender thing kind of, falls in. Yeah. So yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, totally true. Yeah, there's nothing much you can do but surrender. But you feel it's like what has to happen is to happen. I mean, yeah, it was a bit frantic, wasn't planned. But to the original question, I come from a Christian background, so I've heard the names of the gurus, but I didn't know much. Maybe Socrates, but there's still, I think, a lot I don't know. But I'd like to tell a tiny little story of when I met a yogini who was from China. And we had a little chat, and she said, we grew up with the teachings of Confucius, and only when I came to Sahaja Yoga and I got my self-realization, I suddenly realized what he means. And that's kind of the beauty, what I realized with all these quotes that I'm reading now, is now it makes sense. I mean, now I can really relate it to something, and it's all the same. As you say, it's not all the same, but it was all at different times where something was needed, where the society needed to be pushed, or where, in a certain direction that was needed as a guidance, because we are stupid. We need guidance. We need to be pushed in some direction. And in olden days more than now, I mean, it's all different, but it was really, I found it very fascinating how she said that to me, coming from such a very different background. And then we meet again in Sahaja Yoga and we feel like sisters speaking the same, language. So I don't know. That's what I felt about that. But we're still learning, still exciting every day. Like how we prepared this program was so much fun, going through these quotes, and it was just what a ride that was. So much fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just, I would say, a very quick story from my end too. So prior to Sahaja Yoga, I was a huge follower of Shirdi Sainath, and and I had a lot of inkling towards Prophet Muhammad. I had read about him and studied the areas a bit, and then Guru Nanak was other one, and I knew a very little about you can say the left side Adi Gurus, and that was, of course, you can say, revelation for me after I came to Sahaj, that but it was interesting how the whole thing kind of tied together, because when I first got my realization in front of Shri Mataji, I did feel on both hands, but subsequently for months and months, I was not feeling any vibrations on my left side. Right would be super flowing, and left blank, and then occasionally I would get this pain on my ring, around this left void thing over here. It was only after I realized, through several, you can say, connecting the dots, that, okay, all the Adi Gurus I had this, at least some kind of an innate reverence for, they were all on the right side, so, and as and when the knowledge, kind of, built up, and I gained knowledge, as Andre was saying, about all the teachings and how you could say congruent all those teachings are between left and right, and that when the realization came through and that inner reverence grew over a period of time, things started to gradually shape up. So some of those conditionings, they just take some time to, weed out, so yeah, excellent. All right, so quickly to the next question here. The void relates to our spiritual seeking. How do you relate to seeking and being a seeker? Maybe Sia, you want to start first?
Yeah, I would love to start with this because I very often felt like I'm not a real seeker, because comparing myself with other people who've gone through a really very direct journey of spirituality, reading books, going to lectures. I have never done that, but I was also young, obviously, when I came to Sahaja Yoga. I was about 19, maybe 20 years old, but still, I didn't feel, even later on, I didn't feel like I was a seeker as such, that I would sit down with a book and try to find out the truth. But I realized over time that the seeking is, and maybe other people can relate to that. There's so many different sort of seekers maybe amongst us. Active seeker, and maybe not so much active, but I think seeking is even if you're just not 100% satisfied with how things are going in this world, or if you just want to understand, why does this happen to me today, or why do I have a pain here and there? Anything that tries to give you answers to understand yourself and understand this world and understand other people, I felt that's also seeking. And obviously we all know that very often we watch a speech of Shri Mataji and then the answers come right there. So that is for me always the biggest miracle, you could say. It's not a miracle, but it's, this is always and the answer is there. And yeah,
that's
what I felt about being a seeker. Maybe others can relate to that. I don't know.
No, absolutely. Andre, you want to go next?
Why don't you go next, Prashant?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So I will just say this, right? So tying to what you were just saying, Sia, just now, right? So prior to Sahaja Yoga, I would say I was seeking. I would say my seeking culminated, after I came to Sahaja, and I think the effort since then has been more about, establishing in the knowledge of Sahaj and, internalizing it and getting as close to that vision that Shri Mataji has for us as Sahaja Yogis. But yeah, prior to Sahaja Yoga, I would say it was more about, fulfilling that innate sense of incompleteness, which of course, it was later on in my Sahaj journey, I was able to look back, introspect, and be able to connect the dots. But when I was actually going through it, if I kind of characterize that, it was more about, I was doing several rituals, and somehow those were not appealing to me, so I was still following them. I was always a good instruction follower, so I was following what I was taught by my parents, by the, society or whatever, and I was following them. But somehow, there was this incompleteness or whatever you call, it was not really, and that kind of led me to, I would say, some straight directions as well. But then it was really, I would say, what really resonated for me within Sahaj was, the fact that, that finally I was self-reliant. I don't really have to look for answers outside. If I of course had many defects, but I was the one who knew about them, and Sahaj was empowering me to apply the corrections, So to me, that was, I would say, big part of the seeking, and of course the answers that we found here in Sahaj. Yeah, Andre.
Well, I think pretty quickly, I was very happy to call myself a finder. Forget about the seeking.
Okay.
And this transition from seeker to finder, I think it's a big deal in our mind, because you know, seeking evokes some sort of a circular motion. I mean, somehow this word evokes a circular search, right? Searching around our own tail, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we sort of start, right, and obviously self-realization, all the principles awaken kind of all in the same time, but the reality is this steadiness, you know, the gravity which comes from the Muladhara essentially, and it manifests through the Guru principle, is when you just sit and you're happy you're there. You know, I always associate with this. So I always felt, oh, that's great. We don't need to go anywhere. We can just sit. We're there.
Yeah.
And I felt so cool that this is just so simple business. And I've always been a guy of a target, right? And somehow just through where I came from and my mom and readings and, you know, the little bit of stuff, that there has to be an ideal state, that there's no question, there has to be a divine ideal state that seems like some folks are able to get there, or some great people have walked this earth. So it felt, you know, I still remember looking at Shri Mataji's photograph and then the program, you know, in the early days, and thinking, oh, that's so great. We don't need to worry about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I took like a little diversion path from this.
That's fine.
I'm not. Since we're sharing, that's the story.
Oh, it was very good. Very, very enlightening.
I wanted to say something about what Prashant said about rituals, because it's really interesting, because we all come from some sort of ritual, isn't it? But when we were preparing for the meeting, we discovered with Linda how we have this phrase gut feeling, and isn't it funny? It's actually the gut feeling is right there in the nabi, and but it has to build on the Muladhara, as you say, because it's a journey, right? So it builds on the that you have your innocence awakened, and that you have knowledge. So once that is awakened, then you can trust your gut feeling, isn't it? So as the next step. So. Yeah, I think we all had a feeling towards that. I remember when we grew up in church. I mean, I was not a regular churchgoer, but there were so many things I just didn't like, or I couldn't relate to. And one of the biggest problems I had was when we had to call each other brother and sister. I didn't like it. I looked around and thought, these are not my brothers and sisters, because I didn't feel a connection to the people. And you know. As we know, I don't know if you have experienced this, but we meet people in Sahaja Yoga for the first day and we think, oh my God, I know you for my whole life. So it's just this subtlety. But yeah, gut feeling, that's what I thought. We can trust our gut feeling, but it's a good thing. We cleanse ourselves, we are in the center, we're balanced, and then we trust our gut feeling. So it doesn't come from the head, or it comes from the gut, right? The feeling of.
Beautiful is that, yeah, exactly. All right, so our last question over here, which aspects of the Guru principle have you found easier to master in yourself, and which ones have taken more time and introspection? So whoever wants to go first.
I'll go.
Go ahead, Andre. Yeah.
Well, somehow I feel like we, you know, it's this spiral. So eventually you touch again all of them, but you know, at a different level. So initially, lots of the stuff appears, right? It emerges out of the, you know, the pillars emerge out of the sea, but there's lots to go. I haven't sort of had like a one perfect pillar and the other ones are still under the sea, like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So everything it gets better. At least in my case, I always felt that everything it's there, but continues to get better and needs to get better as the years and decades go by. And it's just all kind of this going around, and it works, well, half by itself or 90% by itself, and a little bit from, we do need to do a little bit of something. So or pseudo do something.
Right.
But everything, and I mean, obviously we all come from a different place in life, right? I come from a bit of a, well, ascetic profession, if you want to call it like that, right? So all the stuff that's related to a bit of more ascetic comes naturally to me. It's easy, right? And then the same, right? When it comes to, I think one of the toughest things about the master principle is the point that Master principle doesn't mean you need to master anybody else. You just have to master yourself.
Exactly.
Well, there is this horrible tendency to want to do what one of our Sahaj family called extrospection as opposed to introspection. So you know, running away from the temptation of extrospection, it's a process, right? So
I think that's a great example, Andre. I think what you talked about, that they're like all these different aspects, and they're all kind of gradually under work, right? So I like the analogy a lot. Sia?
Yes, a difficult question, but what I think right now is that having grown up, in Sahaja Yoga more or less from age 19, it wasn't a straight path. Surely self-discipline was lacking here and there for sure. But one thing I could say is in a society where everything goes and where dharma, as we know it, just is not being respected and is just thrown out. I think for myself, what I discovered it just doesn't make you happy. Because I may have tried this or that, it's like, you play with the fire and then you say, oh yeah, it's hot. So, but it's an experience, it has to be an experience. So I don't think I don't really think it's a good thing just to be ascetic for asceticism's sake and not really truly understand. I mean, Adam and Eve, right? That wake up, they had to try to bite in the apple of truth and get the knowledge first to actually know that they're in Eden and decide that they want to be in Eden. So it's like that. I think we all have to experience that, and we may play with things outside the Dharma and realize it's just not giving us joy. And how Shri Mataji says in the speech, when we were looking at the speeches, right, it came again and again that she says those 10 commandments, those things that the Adi Gurus taught us, they were there for our sake, to get us balanced, to make us not get lost. And we forget that, I think. I feel vibrations, but it's like, that's really it. We're not doing it for the society. We kind of do, but we don't do it for other people, do it for ourselves, to really not get lost and get completely destroyed, right? And that, I think, hasn't yet been... Outside people just want to go really as far away as they can from Dharma, very often, right? And then in essentially, it ends up destroying the society from inside, as we have seen in previous cultures. So we can just hope that their seeking that we all realize this just doesn't make us joyful and happy. And then we come back to the very simple principles, as Andre said. It's the simplicity in the end, right? Simplest things. That's what I felt.
No, yeah, absolutely. And then, just talking about a bit, I don't know if I can really claim that, there is something, as Andre was saying, and I think Sia, you were sort of alluding to the same, is that I can't really claim that I have really mastered any of these areas within the void. But what I would say is I can talk about the symptoms, a little bit, so prior to Sahaj, anything that's little, would, kind of, confuse me, take me up. Okay, all right, how will I go about it? So there was this lack of trust in one's own abilities or one's own self. That was, I would say, very, very highly prevalent in my personality. And while as I practiced Sahaj, some of those things, they started to fall away, and it was, I would say, and that's the reason why I use the word transformative, is because, it's like one fine day, something that used to, scare you or, confuse you, all of a sudden it does not. You encounter the same situation and it doesn't phase you out. And you're like, okay, I think I got it. I would say those are like those little wins where you realize that, okay, your master principle is gradually building, that you find this sudden, you can say, sparks of creativity kind of coming out within you, or in general, you're not just kind of looking out for yourself, you're looking out for other people's interests and sort of looking out, how you can be benevolent towards them, what is really good for them. And as Shri Mataji has said, right, that, when you give someone the realization, that is the highest form of creation, what you're doing, you are creating one more realized soul, and the joy that gives you start seeing that person as an extension of yourself. And to me, some of those experiences were very, I would say, resonating. there are still areas that, I am highly faltering on, so food is one of them for sure. I still get tempted a lot, so, and every time there is a aroma coming from the kitchen, I get drawn towards it. So yeah, there are, of course, plenty of things, but just to bring it to head, I would say one thing that, from an introspection standpoint was the thing about attention. I would say that is like the single most weakest link or the strongest link in a yogi's ascent, and more that attention gets powered, with awareness, and more you can keep it under check. I think that's
So true.
Key to evolution. Yeah.
So true. And how we underestimate actually the power of attention as well. I've only had a couple of glimpses recently, I think, about the power of attention. It was just a simple thing like going in the airplane and we had a terrible, terrible turbulence. I don't like turbulences. And on the way back, I went into the airplane differently and the door was open to the pilots. And I just looked and it wasn't even a thought process, nothing. Just put my attention on the pilots, just looked at them, put my attention on their Kundalini. And then sat down and we had the best flight ever. There was not a tiny shake. And when I arrived, I mean, what are the odds? The pilots come out and I think, thank you for this wonderful flight without any turbulences. And they were like, yeah, we really tried to avoid all the holes of turbulence, But I felt in the moment, it's actually very powerful. Just to put your attention, just look there, just give it a minute and have your attention just around. And that's it. That's all it took.
Yeah.
It's only recently I noticed how powerful. We just don't know half of the powers we have. It's a discovery process, isn't it? So nice.
It is for sure. It's for sure. Yeah, I think this was a great discussion, great insights, great perspectives, and I think we shared our journeys. So thank you for that, Andre. Thank you so much, Sia. Again, Sia, it was a fantastic show. I mean, just
show. With all the ups and downs and the connection losses.
All out, as you said, right?
I need a technician.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was such fun. The ride was, the preparation itself was so enlightening, so fun.
Absolutely.
Nice to meet you, Andre. Nice to meet you, Prashant, and everyone else.
Well, thank you all for your time today. So I think that kind of brings us to the conclusion of our session. I believe we can just bring up the information slide. That concludes our session. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. A very good night and keep meditating.